everybody, today let's talk about base models. No, not that type of base, this type of base. Right here is the 2020 Hyundai Santa Fe SE, which is the lowest Santa Fe trim level available. Most car reviews that you'll see online are of top level trims, mainly because auto manufacturers want to show off all that they have to offer for any given model. But you may not have a top level trim budget, or you don't have the need for some top level trim features. Many new models don't make you give up that much when you opt for a bottom level trim. In the case of the 2020 Santa Fe SE, this base model is actually decently appointed from the factory. Before we get started, please hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so you can get notified of my new and used car reviews, road trip stories, and updates on my fleet of weird vehicles. Let's start with the looks. The Santa Fe was redesigned in the 2019 model year, giving it a more upscale look than its predecessor. This base model actually looks pretty similar to the top-level trims. Main differences are 17-inch wheels instead of 18s or 19s, no LED headlights or taillights. Certainly there are other small differences, but the base model here looks pretty decent compared to the upper-level trims. The Santa Fe is the type of vehicle you're likely considering because you want a practical SUV, and you may be cross-shopping it against smaller SUVs like the Toyota RAV4 or mid-size SUVs like the Ford Edge. The Santa Fe is unique in that it straddles the line between a small and mid-size SUV. You're really getting near mid-size SUV space at a compact SUV price. This past week, I took this Santa Fe on a Northern California road trip with my family. We racked up 1,400 miles and spent 30 hours driving this vehicle, so I've had quite a bit of time to formulate my opinion on this car. Hop inside and you're greeted with a clean, practical, and well-executed interior design. It looks and feels quite nice. There's some cool design details right here on the speaker grills. Inspect a bit more closely and you'll notice some hard plastics, which is totally acceptable at this price point. No one would ever confuse this for a luxury vehicle, but it's pretty decent for the class. And as this is a base model, there are some dummy buttons where higher end features would go, but these are well integrated and it doesn't really make you feel like you're a cheapskate for opting for the base trim. Remote entry is standard, but the only thing that makes this base model SE feel kind of dated is the actual key to start this vehicle. I'm constantly searching for the push button start every time I hop in this car, and then I remember there's an actual key. Push button start comes with the SE-L trim and above. The SE comes with a standard 7-inch touchscreen. Higher trim levels get a slightly larger screen and wireless charging, but you still get 2 USB ports up front, with this one here connecting to the infotainment. You get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto even on this base trim level. Even with this slightly smaller screen, this infotainment system is great. It's easy to use, responsive graphics, it's intuitive, with physical buttons for controls, and a volume knob. The SE trim does not have navigation, but aren't we all just using Apple CarPlay and Android Auto for that anyway? The base model cluster display offers useful info like trip information and allows you to change settings for things like the smart cruise control and lane keep assist. Those driver assist features, along with several accident avoidance features, come standard on all trim levels. In 2019, blind spot warning and rear cross traffic alert were standard on the SE, but Hyundai moved that to SE-L trim and above for 2020. And right here's another little reminder that you have the base model. It shows a setting for drive modes, but you can't actually change them. It just defaults to comfort. To me, that's kind of like a dummy button. Why show it here if you don't have any way to select it? Don't even remind me that I cheaped out for the base model. Dual climate control is not available on the SE, but honestly, there's something nice about the immediacy of a base model climate control. Temperature, fan speed, and location, that's it. Turn up for more, down for less. Call me a Luddite, but I actually prefer that to dual climate systems. The look and feel of the cloth seats is quite nice, but heated and ventilated seats are not available in the SE. That's only on the higher level trims. The base model seats are not power adjustable, but they're quick and easy to adjust. And for a long road trip, I'd say these offer a decent level of comfort. I never really felt fatigue sitting in them, but my wife didn't really like them that much. Most important takeaway is that there's just a ton of space in here. I'm 6'3" with long legs and long arms, and I don't even have to move my seat all the way back to get comfortable in here. This is one of the first small SUVs that I actually feel comfortable in. I guess technically it is creeping in on mid-sized territory, and that's probably why I'm comfortable in here, but if you're tall or got long legs, this is probably gonna work out really nicely for you. Visibility out the front is good, out the rear is just okay, but it does have a decent backup camera. You get a medium-sized storage bin right here, a place for phones, 2 medium-sized cup holders. The door bins have space for water bottles, but they kind of hang out sideways if they're larger. You get a physical shifter with a manual mode. And down here you got your parking brake, auto hold, you can disable the auto start stop, and this auto brake feature. Rear seat comfort is quite good. With my front seat set for my height, I have plenty of legroom, plenty of hip room back here. And check this out, they recline. Middle seat's not that comfortable, not really comfortable at all. It's kind of tight, but it's acceptable. This folds down to reveal an armrest and 2 cup holders. Vents and 2 USB ports are standard. Latch anchors for baby seats are easy to get to, but you will have to slide your front seats forward just a bit to fit a rear-facing car seat. We've got 35.9 cubic feet of cargo space behind the second row. The seats fold down to reveal 71.3 cubic feet of cargo space. These hidden cargo compartments are tremendously useful. We put a ton of camping gear in here during our trip. Even with those rear seats up, we were really impressed with the amount of stuff we could cram in here. And to fold those rear seats back up, it is a 2-hand operation. Under the hood is a 2.4-liter 4-cylinder, making 185 horsepower and 178 pound-feet of torque. A more powerful 2-liter turbo motor is available on higher trim levels. The transmission's an 8-speed automatic, and this Santa Fe has the optional all-wheel drive system, which will set you back about $1,700 extra. This base motor is decent. It has enough power to handle most situations, including passing on the freeway, but you do really kind of have to stand on it to get everything out of it. A light press of the gas pedal will really not get the transmission to downshift. You really have to lay your foot into it. The motor's a bit loud when you really step on it, but otherwise this is a relatively quiet and comfortable cabin. The steering is nicely weighted, and the ride quality is pretty good for this segment of vehicle. It can get just a touch bouncy over bumpy pavement, and if you try to push it around corners, you will experience a fair amount of body roll, and that's to be expected. This isn't really an engaging vehicle to drive, but chances are, if you're in the market for this type of vehicle, you're not looking for something that can carve corners or win drag races. You want something practical and something that's not going to surprise you. But I will say, it does an acceptable job if you want to push it through some windy back roads. So we used the adaptive cruise control quite a bit on our road trip, and it worked really well. There's a few settings that allow you to adjust the reaction time, and I found myself preferring the fast setting most. One thing we noticed is that the cruise control wouldn't hold speed when we were traveling uphill. I'm not sure if maybe because it was programmed to avoid downshifts or to save fuel economy, something like that. It wasn't exactly annoying, it was just something to keep in mind. The other thing that I use quite a bit on our road trip is the lane keep assist feature. It's quite useful for keeping you centered in your lane. It's not quite as smart as the lane keep assist that I experienced in the 2020 Kia Telluride. For instance, that one will really kind of keep you hugged around even a long sweeping curve. This system didn't seem quite that aggressive, but it was still a pretty useful feature if you want a little bit of assistance to keep you in your lane on a long journey. As I mentioned before, this Santa Fe has the optional all-wheel drive system, so the fuel economy is slightly lower than the front-wheel drive version. With all-wheel drive, the fuel economy is rated at 24 miles per gallon. If you opt for front-wheel drive, it's rated at 25. That seems maybe just slightly on the low side for this type of vehicle, but not terrible. If fuel mileage is what you're really going after, you might want to consider something like the RAV4 Hybrid. But we actually averaged almost 28 miles per gallon on our 1,400-mile road trip, which is definitely an improvement over the rated mileage. Okay, let's talk price. The base Santa Fe SE comes in at $25,900. This base model SE with all-wheel drive comes in at $27,600. Jumping up to the SEL trim adds about $2,000 to the price of the base model SE. And it gives you some aesthetic upgrades and some features like heated front seats, blind spot monitoring, and a power driver's seat. The SEL trim also allows you to add options like the panoramic sunroof and the hands-free liftgate at a cost. This base model SE, the only option you can get is all-wheel drive. That's it. And you could spec a Santa Fe up to nearly $40,000 when you opt for the limited trim with a 2-liter turbo motor. In terms of competition, the base model Toyota RAV4 starts at around the same price as this base model Santa Fe. But when you add all-wheel drive to the RAV4, it gets a little bit pricier. But the RAV4 does give you better gas mileage. You could bump up to something like the new Honda Passport or Chevy Blazer, but those are getting much more expensive, even for the base models. And if you need more cargo space or you need a third row of seats, you'll have to step up to something like the Hyundai Palisade or Kia Telluride. You can check out my 2020 Kia Telluride review by clicking above. Over the course of our 1,400-mile road trip and over 30 hours sitting in this car, we were actually quite pleased with it. If you want to check out some of the adventures that we took this vehicle on, click above. If you're in the market for a practical, small to mid-size SUV, the Santa Fe is a pretty good choice. The interior is quite roomy, the ride is good, it's pretty comfortable, it's got a decent amount of cargo space in the back. I'd say this base model is a fine choice if you're on a budget, as it comes with a good amount of content and it's priced affordably. Normally, I wouldn't recommend buying the lowest trim level of any vehicle, because in the past, they've been completely neutered. But the 2020 Santa Fe SE is a practical base model that you can live with every day.